Dan here from Local Harvest Gardening, and today I'm going to show you succession planting with carrots. This crop over here was planted or seeded in early May, and it's now ready to be pulled, and today we're in early August. It's a great time for me to get my second crop of carrots in. And this is kind of different from what most people remember from their childhood. You know, you go in with that big crop in May, and that's all the carrots you do. They've come out with new fast varieties. So this is a 75-day variety that I planted here, and the new variety that I'm going to be putting in is about the same length to maturity. That gives me an opportunity to get 2 crops of carrots in per year. Early August, that's about the latest we can go here on the West Coast. I know some other areas, maybe late July, but these days are really, really important. We get excellent heat, light, so we're going to get rapid germination. These are going to take off, and then as we go into the fall, their growth is going to slow down. We won't be harvesting these up until about November, maybe December, and we'll be able to overwinter them by covering with a little bit of mulch for the months of December, January, and maybe February. And we'll have fresh carrots in April of next year. So these ones here, as no-till growers, you're going to discover very early on that one big advantage of no-till is that your carrots are going to be easy to pull, and they're going to come out relatively clean. Okay, so this is one huge advantage of no-till growing. This garden is in its second year of no-till, and with ease, I can extract these carrots. I'm going to seed carrots in exactly the same bed. So no crop rotation. Okay, and I can explain this in more detail in the gardening course, why we put carrots in the same location and why we're not afraid to put anything in the same location year after year after year. If you have an area where you put garlic in or potatoes in and you go year after year, in no-till growing, that is not a concern. We don't consider crop rotation to be an essential part of growing. Now these carrots here are going to go back in the same bed, so I'm going to pull them all. And then I'm going to give the bed a light raking, and then I'm going to drop seeds in exactly the same rows where they came out. These carrots, they're imperators, so they push deep, long tunnels down into the soil. So if I seed my new carrots right in the same spot, I've got that nice, loose soil, and the carrots are going to grow really, really well. I'm going to seed them in exactly the right spacing, so I don't have to do any thinning later. And I think that's important. Seed is expensive. Why would you waste it, right? So they're very small seeds, but I have time. It's a small garden. I drop my seeds in place, in row. I won't do any thinning later on. Then I'm going to give this bed a thorough watering. And after that, I have to make sure that for the next 10 to 15 days at a minimum, the soil remains moist continuously on the surface. If you are not doing that, you're going to get very, very poor germination, especially with the heat that we're getting here in August. So you want to keep the soil moist at all times. So what I've seen people do is they cover the bed with a piece of plywood after seeding. A piece of plywood or a plank of wood or cardboard in order to maintain a moist germination bed. That is essential. Then after 5, 6, 7 days, you're going to peek underneath the cardboard or the board or the plywood, whatever you have, and you're going to check to see if there's any germination. The instant you see any little bit of green popping out the ground, that's the time to remove the piece of wood and let the carrots on their own, give them as much sunshine as possible. Now, because I'm working on a timer, I have an irrigation timer, we talk about the mini sprinkler system that we use. That way I can keep this soil moist. So I'm going to be watering 5, maybe 10 times a day through the heat of the day just to keep the surface moist so I get great germination. All right, and then after that, one thing to remember with these carrots is that as we get into the fall and winter, especially if you live in a colder region, you want to do some basic mulching. And here's where you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only are you going to be mulching the carrots, you're going to be providing fertility for upcoming crops. Okay, so you're adding organic plant material on the surface as the carrots are reaching maturity. And I would use a coarser material like wood chips so that we get great insulation. Wood chip mixed with leaves would be the perfect situation. And then I'm going to be harvesting these carrots sometime in November, December, right through. After that, storing carrots, some real simple tips is remember that a carrot after it's harvested, is a living plant. It's not a dead plant. It will regrow if you plant it in the ground. And so when you bear that in mind, you think, hey, what do living plants need? Well, they need some moisture, okay? Not excessive moisture. So if you're storing these inside, sand is a good option. Maybe wood chips is a good option. Store them inside, cool, moist, and keep your temperature consistent as possible. So if you want to be ideally in the 4 or 5 degree range, if you're up to 8 to 10 degrees, that's okay. Any higher than that, you're going to have a tough time storing these for any length of time. The other way to store them in some regions where you don't get a lot of rain, you can store them outdoors in the garden, like I'm going to be doing over here in the ground, because that is the best situation. Dan from Local Harvest Gardening, and I've told you a little bit about what you need to know about being successful in doing carrots in your no-till garden. Thank you.